Hello, this is Joe Trahan, welcoming you to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooton Foundation, whose mission is to enlighten the world to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances. As the national leader on this subject, they communicate their educational messages through various methods, including this podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the All Me podcast. My name is Don Hooton Jr., and today I'll be your host. This interview is with a longtime supporter of the Taylor Hooton Foundation, Ken Crenshaw. Following our partnership with Major League Baseball in 2005, we were connected with the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society, which you'll hear me refer to as PBats in this interview. For the past 15 years, we've been part of PBats Play program. Play stands for Promoting a Lifetime of Activity for Youth. Each summer, we get to travel to all 30 Major League Baseball parks, working with our partners, the athletic trainers, with PBats, to share Taylor's story in our impactful education program. Today, we're going to learn more about what an athletic trainer is and what it takes to be an athletic trainer. Ken Crenshaw is the Director of Sports Medicine for the Arizona Diamondbacks. For the past 30 years, he's worked in Major League Baseball and has obtained a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience. You're going to quickly learn why Ken is a natural leader in this industry and why it's important for him to share the knowledge he's learned with others, as his goal is to make everyone better. In this interview, we're going to learn what it's like being a big league athletic trainer, as well as what it's like being a member of PBats. I'd like to say a very special thank you to PBats for including the Taylor Hooton Foundation in their community outreach programs and for all of their support they've provided us over the years. The All Me podcast wouldn't be possible without the support we receive from our partners at Gatorade. A big thank you to Gatorade for their support. Please be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please be sure to give us a rating. It will help us impact more lives. Let's get to visiting with Ken Crenshaw, a Major League Baseball athletic trainer. Ken Crenshaw, welcome to the All Me podcast. We're excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm really excited to talk to you today because you've made it to the pinnacle of your profession in athletic training, and you're currently serving as the Director of Sports Medicine and Performance for the Arizona Diamondbacks. But before we get into your current role, I think it's important for our listeners to know more about what has led to your success. So why don't you tell us about young Ken Crenshaw? Where did you grow up? Were you an athlete? What were some of your interests?
Yeah, no, great question. I grew up in a tiny little rural town in New Mexico called Carrizosa, New Mexico, less than 1,000 people. So it was a pretty unique place. Kind of grew up on a cattle ranch, and all of those things, obviously led to the smaller school that I attended, and we were all into sports. I know that. My dad actually was a football player and played for the Eagles in the NFL, so I was kind of expected that, hey, aren't you going to play sports? But we played football, basketball, and track. That's all we really had in our small town. So, man, some of the greater memories of my life were in high school, growing up in that small town and being able to play sports that, eventually led me to college.
That's really interesting. I didn't know your dad played for the Eagles. When did he play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was back in the early late 60s. So quite a while ago. He's since passed away, but he was a legend in our town. Small town like that to produce somebody like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I know you're a big guy just standing next to you, but that's neat stuff. So when you're a high school student, were there any classes that interested you, something that maybe, got you interested in the field of athletic training at a young age?
Yeah, I think my first tip was I got hurt. Actually, I was a junior in high school playing football, and I got hit in the quad, during a game, and I had a deep thigh bruise, but we didn't have any athletic trainers at our school. It was just way too small. So I tried to battle through it for a week, just wasn't getting any better. We had a really good football team that year, one of the best teams in the state. So my dad suggested, he's like, hey, why don't you go down to New Mexico State in Las Cruces? It's about 2 hours away, which is where he played. And he said that my old college athletic trainer, his name's George Westbrook, he'll take a look at you and, see if he can help you out. So my coach drug me down there. We didn't go to school that day, which I thought it was cool. We got to skip school,
Yeah.
went down and met this guy, George Westbrook, and he immediately said, yeah, I think it's a deep thigh bruise, and I got just the machine to help this thing out. So he runs this kind of stem ultrasound combo. At the time, I had no idea what it was. I'd never even seen anything like that. And he turns it up to the top level. And I'm about to pass out because it's hurting pretty bad, but he kind of held the, hey, I know your dad was a really tough guy in front of me, so I had to keep a stern face and just say, no, it feels fine. But oddly enough, after he did that treatment, I was unbelievably improved, which I couldn't believe because I'd drug that leg around for at least a week. And, fast forward, I end up playing that Friday, and then I went back the next week for another treatment. And that was kind of my introduction to athletic training. And I just thought, man, that's really cool that somebody could help somebody get, from where I was to the ability to play.
Yeah, I never knew really what an athletic trainer was until I was in high school and I had tendonitis, and they're like, see the athletic trainer. I'm like, what's that? And I went, and it actually was my science teacher at the time. And I just thought it was so cool. And I mean, and then you look back today and how you were talking about when you were growing up and you had a small school and there weren't, you didn't have an athletic trainer. And I know even today, there's many high schools out there that don't have athletic trainers, but they have, athletic departments, which I think, and I know from a national level, we're working to get to that, but I think every athletic department at a high school and even middle school needs an athletic trainer because you guys are so important.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, they're much more common now. Obviously living in Phoenix, most of the schools are larger schools and everybody's, got one or some access to them via a clinic or some other medical health care system.
So going all the way back to the basics, if somebody were to ask you, what exactly is the role of an athletic trainer, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, I would say somebody that can kind of recognize, evaluate, a sports injury and then, direct you either to more extensive medical care or actually, treat the issue if it doesn't require, a physician or some sort of advanced imaging, somebody that can treat the injury and get you, to a better place and back into, the athletic endeavor that you're involved in. And or if you've had some sort of surgical procedure or longer term injury, they could be a part of the rehabilitation process that gets you back to playing again.
Outstanding. Yeah, and I know how important the role is and how knowledgeable you guys are, because typically you're the first responder when there is an injury out on the field. So you end up graduating high school and you go on to attend New Mexico State University. How did you end up selecting New Mexico State to further your education?
Yeah, so I had a football scholarship to play at New Mexico State when I first left, and I thought, I'm going to go there, and I was really interested in being a veterinarian. So I didn't have athletic training on my radar at that point in time. I went down, and right before that summer, before I went, I had played in a North-South All-Star basketball game in New Mexico because I'd played multiple sports, and I was a pretty good basketball player too. In my tiny town, I was actually a pretty good athlete, comparatively speaking to everybody in the 100 kids we had in our high school. So anyway, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I really don't want to play football. I love basketball, and that's what I want to do. And he said, well, you don't feel like you got to play because of me. And there was always that outside kind of push, or are you going to be like your dad? You're going to be like your dad. And, and anyway, he just kind of opened the doors for me to go down. So I tried to walk on in basketball. New Mexico State had a really good program. They still do to this day. And I went down, and I ended up, trying to walk on, and went through, all of the fall workout stuff. And we got a couple days off to come home, and I came home and was playing some pickup games with a couple of my other high school friends that were home from college for around the Thanksgiving time, and I ended up tearing my ACL. And at the time I didn't really know. I just knew I hurt my knee. I just didn't know how bad. So I went back and I went, to the athletic training room there at the college, and they looked at it, and doctors looked at it, and, well, we think it's torn. We're not sure, let's rehab it. So I spent I spent a good period of time in the training room rehabbing a knee, and then the following fall I tried to jump back in again, and then I ended up tearing it for sure that time. I just knew, I came down on it wrong, and I was like, all right, this is a pretty good indicator of where you need to go, because I really liked what I saw when I was in the athletic training room. I was like, man, this is really cool, what these guys are doing. And so that's just a game changer for me. I said, I'm probably not good enough to really play at the level that I was trying to accomplish anyway, but it was a good kind of direction towards, my path now, which is get into the athletic training program. And, I ended up having surgery on my knee. And so I kind of started down that path right there. And that's led me here.
Interesting. So I guess New Mexico State already had an athletic training program or sports medicine program where you're going to go through and start taking the classes that you need to take. And I'm sure you also had an opportunity to work with some of the sports teams while you're there. And in sort of doing that as you're getting your degree, I mean, what were your favorite sports to work, as a young man growing up, working towards your athletic training degree?
No, it's a great question. We had an unbelievably good program. If you look back, it's one of the things we love bragging on, our New Mexico State's athletic training program, because we've probably had the most athletic trainers in professional baseball of any college. And to this day, there's quite a few of them. So it was, we really had a great program. We challenged each other. We just had some really cool people that made each other better. We had a great program director and a great, head athletic trainer there at New Mexico State. And, he kind of channeled us into getting a sample of all the sports, which I thought was really cool, because there was some things that I swimming to volleyball to basketball, football, track and field, we got a little taste of all of them. And that really was an eye opener for me, because there was plenty of the sports that I had no idea about, but I enjoyed just kind of seeing what was going on. But I eventually, basketball, I was with the women's basketball team and the men's basketball team for a couple seasons. And then my last year, somebody said, hey, the baseball team needs an athletic trainer. And to be honest, I wouldn't say I was the biggest baseball guy. I played in Little League, and that was it. And I took the opportunity, and we had an unbelievably good coach named Elliot Avent, who's the head coach at North Carolina State now. And then a great team too. And one of the players on the team was a guy named Mario Mocha, who's actually the athletic director now at New Mexico State. And we just had a great time. We ended up, playing U of A and ASU and just a lot of really good teams. And we had a great team. And I loved it. I just thought, man, this is really cool. I didn't know anything about it. And that fortunately led me to the next step, which was professional baseball.
Which I find so fascinating, because your whole life you're football, basketball, and then all of a sudden you have this passion and you're working in baseball, and here you are. I mean, you've literally made it to the pinnacle of your profession, which is outstanding. Many people ask us along the way, especially in the profession of athletic training, many will have, a degree in athletic training as well as, a national strength and conditioning certification. And in episode 28, we had a chance to interview Nate Shaw, who's the Diamondback strength and conditioning coach. Mm-hmm. He's also an athletic trainer. So why are a lot of athletic trainers also certified as strength and conditioning coaches? Is there a benefit to having both of those certifications?
I personally think so. I took a little different route when I got into professional baseball. I was working for the Pittsburgh Pirates back in the early or late 80s. And I did 3 short season teams, and I was trying to get into physical therapy school. And then I had a little shift in my opportunity. I had a guy that I'd worked with the Pirates became the farm director with the Braves. And he offered me the opportunity to become the strength and conditioning coordinator, and the Braves never had anything prior to that year, which was 1991. And so I was like, wow, I've worked out my whole life and I pseudo understand it, but not real extensively. So, man, I took that opportunity instead of going to physical therapy school. And, I just knew at that moment I need to get more training, in the strength and conditioning world. And that was kind of one of the key places to start with. So, I went through through that route. I went to the NSCA and got my CSCS, and then I started, really diving deep into that whole strength and conditioning world. And then that led me to really see, I like the versatility. There's not many people that have done both jobs, which actually Nate Shaw is one of them that has. He's been an athletic trainer and strength and conditioning person. And I just see the way that understanding both fields really meshes well together. And that's kind of one of our philosophies here with the Diamondbacks is, we're all one team. It doesn't matter if you're in the strength and conditioning department or the athletic training or physical therapy. We're all one team. And that versatility to me is really important. So I really push a lot of our people to do, have a strength and conditioning understanding or certification if you're an athletic trainer. And if you're a strength and conditioning person, a lot of our guys are LMT, a lot of licensed massage therapists. So they have the license to put their hands on people, and, you kind of can mesh both worlds together like that.
Yeah, exactly. Have a more, I guess, a well-rounded, point of view of, especially when you're working with these athletes, how to help get them stronger, but also how to, take care of them, keep them healthy. This is kind of an inside question that I'm sure a lot of people want to know, but what is the biggest difference in being an athletic trainer in the minor leagues versus being an athletic trainer in the big leagues? Or is there even a difference at all?
Well, I always say, look, an injury is an injury is an injury. It doesn't matter if it's in the major leagues or the minor leagues. It's still an injury. I think the big difference for me, there's plenty of things in the minor leagues that are way harder than what you deal with in the major leagues, like particularly like travel and facilities and, just whatever budgets and things that you have to work with there. So, working in the minor leagues first for me really gives you an appreciation of just, baseball and, athletic training. And then as you get to the big leagues, everything's obviously a lot nicer and catered to a lot more, but the egos are a lot bigger and, there's a lot more focus on, hey, we're spending a lot of money here and, you could perceive it as pressure. I think that seems to be a word that a lot of people resonate with. But, that's the big difference because you're under a lot more scrutiny. It's like, hey, when's this guy going to be ready if he's hurt? And, in the minor leagues, a lot of times it's like, like you take care of the guy in time and he gets back and plays. But there's not that, that, I guess, intensity with which you're feeling at the major leagues.
Okay. So I want to just change gears for a moment because, as you know, the work that we do here at the Taylor Hooton Foundation, and we formed this organization in memory of my younger brother, Taylor, and it's our mission to enlighten the world to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances. And for the past 15 years, we've all worked together to impact young lives nationwide. In your career, have you ever worked with an athlete that has used any type of appearance and performance enhancing substance?
Yeah, I guess fortunately or unfortunately I have. Back in the 90s, I've been in this game for a while. So we ran the gamut of sports enhancing time era when there was no testing. And, I would say there's been a few that have been open about it. And then plenty of others, I'm sure, that weren't open about it. But, that I guess I saw some of the effects and didn't inherently know that was the case, but I just saw a lot of negative in some of it. And that was the thing, I would take with me to today to any younger athlete or just younger person in general is like, don't misconceive any of that with the dangers because there's a lot of danger in it. And, I just feel like, really knowing yourself and learning how to work hard and do all of the things that it's going to make you a better athlete and also a better person is the way to go.
I completely agree. So for those younger folks that are listening, and looking back now and gathering all the knowledge from the 90s to, here we are in 2021, what sort of effects would you notice, that these athletes' bodies would either go through? Was there anything that ever stood out to you, looking back now, like, oh, that guy might have been using performance-enhancing drugs?
Yeah, I think just, physical appearance. You see a guy go home in the off season, he comes back and he's 20, 30 pounds bigger and stronger, and you're like, whoa, that doesn't look real natural. And particularly when I was the strength and conditioning coordinator, I'm like, whoa, I don't know that the program I gave you would do that. And, inherently after that, we started to see a lot of negatives coming out.
Yeah.
Guys were getting hurt more. Honestly, I had a former player that became a hitting coach with us, and he ended up having a liver transplant. A lot of negative things. And, he's really open about it. He's like, yeah, that's what did it. So, like that, those are pretty obvious things. But back then, was pretty common because there was no testing. So, in today's world, it's a different game. There's a lot of, strict testing, and I just think it's a lot better for the game.
So is this a topic that you would cover with your big league players? And if so, what message do you send to them, or, how do you address this topic with a big league player?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think inherently the big league player now knows that there's a lot of testing and restriction, and therefore it's, probably a route that's really delicate for them. So I think most of them will invest in saying, hey, look, I'm going to try to figure out the best ways to train, the best ways to recover, the best things to eat, the best supplements that are all, obviously approved by certain, MLB entities that say, hey, these are safe and clean. And I think what I see now is that's where players invest their time versus, hey, I'm going to try to trick the system and see if I can get by. That's what I'm seeing in the game, which, to be honest, I really like.
Yeah, a lot of focus on nutrition and taking care of their bodies, which, that's one of the reasons we love working with you guys, because we're able to educate the kids about really the perils of appearance and performance enhancing substances. And then they work with guys like you who work with the most elite athletes in the world to keep these guys healthy and show them the right ways of, your proper nutrition and making sure you're warming up and you're lifting weights and you're keeping your body healthy to last a long season.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm seeing that, you just get a much more educated player. And I think a lot of what you just said is sifting down into, the college and high school arenas. I know I preach it a lot around Phoenix. I love working with youth athletes, and I get out there with the coaches and give free seminars and just try to get them educated, because that's where it starts. I think preaching, really good habits and seeing enough guys that actually took that route with a lot of success is it's helpful to let other coaches and other players go, wow, I'm going to Cody Bellinger here, who, went from Hamilton High, which is right down the street, to, right on through, done some really impressive things. And then the local kids see that and they're like, okay, that's a really good route. So I think that's what I preach a lot around here locally.
Yeah, you do. I know you're a big education guy and spend a lot of your time, educating others and sharing the knowledge that you have. So having had the chance to work around Major League Baseball athletic trainers, I've quickly learned how grueling your schedule can be. And I've caught myself a couple times at various play campaigns, and we're going to talk play, and play stands for promoting a lifetime of activity for youth. But I've caught myself talking, oh man, travel's been hard. This is my third city this week, because you guys are constantly on the go. And you guys, when you're talking to these kids at these play campaigns, they'll ask you how long you spend at the park each day. And it's interesting to see their reaction, because for many of these young people, they believe that you guys are just showing up for game time, and as soon as the game's over, you're in your car heading home. So for those young people who dream of working professional sports and as an athletic trainer, what expectations should they have when it comes to the work that they'll need to put in?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's what most people do. I hear the same thing. Hey, you roll in at 6:40 and then you get home at 10. And I'm like, unfortunately not. Maybe if you add about 10 hours to that, then you got it. But yeah, it's a grueling process. And I tell everybody that comes through athletic training world or strength and conditioning world as interns or even just somebody that's interested in getting in the field, you got to really love this piece, because if you don't, you're going to be there quite a bit. And, that's what's driven me, and I know all the other people that I've worked with that are really good at what they do, is just the love of the game. I mean, we're going to spend a lot of time here. Unfortunately, baseball is a very long and drawn out process when you look at the way teams practice and warm up and all these other things. So, a typical day, if we have a 7 o'clock game, is we're probably there around 12. And then, this is a typical, regular season day. And, we'll work with some rehab guys and get some preparation things going on early. And, players probably start coming in at 1 o'clock. And then, we go through a process of all of the things that it takes to play the game, which is, warming up and strength and conditioning and, batting practice and throwing programs. And then we play the game at 7. And, when the game's over, it's generally a review time and treatment time for the guys that are hurt. And, we get home about 12 o'clock. So, it's 12 to 12 during the season. And you kind of, there's really not a lot of off days. You'll catch an occasional off day in there. But in spring training's just as bad, if not worse, because you got more players. So, your love of the game needs to be there if you want to be an athletic trainer, and not just in baseball. This is any sport. All the other people that I know in other sports, which is quite a few, they say the same thing. The ones that do well just love that ability to be around, sport and, help athletes achieve their potential.
One of the things I've noticed about, I would say, almost every athletic trainer I've gotten to know on a personal level, not only do you guys love the sport and the game that you take care of these athletes, but you love what you do, and you also love taking care of these guys. I mean, you have a true passion and want and desire to make sure that your athletes are healthy, and you truly care about their health and well-being, which I think is just so fascinating.
I think one thing too, Don, I'll say that I didn't learn this till I was older in life, but when you're young, you're just trying to do your best and hopefully be good at your profession and be diligent and work hard and all this. But I think it was somewhere in the 40-year range, I started figuring out, why do I do this? Because this is kind of crazy. And it's been great to my family and compensated me well, but I think it's when you figure out your why in life, like, why do you do what you do? And what I came to the conclusion is I love serving people, and particularly the people that I work with. I love to see them grow and develop and get their opportunity somewhere else. So that's kind of my why in life, is to help them get to the places that they want to get to. And, just that coming from that serving place is kind of what we do as athletic trainers in general, but that's it's the beauty of it too.
I love that. And I think that applies over all aspects in life, from the business world to the personal world. So, great advice, and something you've learned and obviously you're still sharing. Now, a player gets injured during the game. You're typically the first person that responds to their needs. So you're paying attention to every single pitch that's thrown. When you run out onto the field to check on that player that's been injured, like if they've been hit by a pitch, or maybe there's a collision at one of the bases or at home plate, what is going through your mind as you're getting out there to that player to help him?
That's kind of when the rubber meets the road of all your training, because it can be a really tense moment, or it can be, something that's not as tense and requires you to just ask some good questions to kind of sift down to what's wrong. You see a guy make an awkward move and maybe strained a muscle or something. But the other end of the spectrum, the guy got hit in the face with a ball or some sort of catastrophic injury. And that's when it's your heart's pumping, and you have to really lean back on all your training and just try to, stay calm in the moment and know, hey, look, I've got a process that I've got to walk through here to see what my next move's going to be here. Okay. Is it, EMTs on the field, ambulance, is the player alert, not alert? I mean, there's a whole lot of things that are racing through your head. And, fortunately I had some really good training in college, and, you got to continue to train yourself and stay updated. But, those are tense moments at times. And it puts, honestly, I kind of like it, because it puts a lot of pressure on you in the moment to make a decision. And that's not always the popular one. Sometimes players are like, no, I'm fine. And you just know look, this is where we're at in the game. This is where we're at in the season. This is, your potential injury and what's required for you to play the game. So, it's a lot to process in a short period of time. And I think if you can slow it down in that moment, that's really helpful. That's a hard thing to do.
Guess that's why you guys are continuing learning, constantly having meetings, getting your continuing education units, so your training does kick in. But what would you say has been the hardest injury case that you've ever had?
Well, it's funny. A lot of young athletic trainers always ask that, or players. It's funny, young players ask that, and you don't always want to tell the young player because you're like, okay, don't want that to happen to you. But I had a couple instances when we had a guy named Tony Saunders when I was in Tampa who broke his humerus. And actually, you mentioned Jamie Reed. We worked together, and we were part of that. And that was one that made you sick to your stomach, and just so rare that you're like, whoa, not life-threatening, but a really catastrophic injury. That was one that comes to my mind. And then we've had several others where a guy's got, hit in the face with a ball and knocked unconscious. And those to me are the ones where you're like, okay, the neck injuries, head injuries, all of these things that are, life-threatening, flash right in front of your eyes. And I think, I've had, I don't even 3, 4, or 5 of those. So, those are the ones that really come strong to my mind.
Yeah, that's got to be really scary. Now, at what level are you helping, ownership? If they decide to make a trade, they want to acquire a new player, at what level are you involved with that decision, or are you involved at all?
No, we are. I mean, we've got a great front office group, and they're always, asking, I think part of every process in a trade now is exchanging medical records, and you get to look at the other team's records before the trade's made. Same thing with free agents. You get to look at medical records and, biomechanical reviews, and, you don't really know that player one-on-one, and you're just kind of going off of what's been put into the medical records. So I wouldn't say it's a real foolproof process, but it's something, and they definitely will lean on you in those moments to try to say, hey, look, what does this look like? Is this a really high risk situation, or, what's your thoughts there? So, yeah.
Interesting. Are you able to communicate with, let's say it's another big league team you're taking the trade from, or a free agent that, let's say they played for another big league team. Are you able to interact with, whether it's the team physician or the team's, athletic training staff, to, kind of talk with them through some of the injuries, to help you make your decision? Does that make sense?
Yeah. In a trade situation, for sure, you may have some questions about what you see, and you have the right to go back and say, hey, look, can you define this and make this a little more clear for me? And, you just talk it out. I mean, like I've always, unbelievable GMs that I've worked with have always just been really open about, hey, make sure they know everything there is to know. And that's awesome. It makes it easy. In a free agent situation, that's different. I think it's just common etiquette. Like you look at the medical records and that's what you got, Yeah. I mean, to call other teams and check on them, we just try to avoid that as much as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, you're sitting in the dugout for every single game. You've seen thousands of games in your career. What would you say is the most memorable moment that you've had?
Well, I think it's obviously when, your team's winning and you hit these really high moments of clinching playoffs and playing through the playoffs. And I was lucky back in the early 90s. I was part of the Atlanta Braves, and I kind of had a split role. I had time in the major leagues and minor leagues, and we won every year. I mean, we were in the World Series and won the World Series in '95, and we're in it, 3 of the 5 years I was there. So I remember those moments, even though I wasn't as close to the major league team because I split a lot of time in the minor league team, but I was there, and, I really remember a lot of those. My years in Tampa were pretty dry. I had about 10 years there that it was rough. And then when I left, they've done spectacularly well since. So maybe it was me. And then when I got to Arizona, we've had 2007 was a really special year. We we ended up playing in the National League Championship against the Colorado Rockies, but the first round we played the Cubs, and in 11 we had a nice run, and then we had another wild card opportunity, and then you always remember those moments. I think those are the really high moments that you remember really strongly, or just a player accomplishing something great. I think that's really nice, and even more nice when you've actually had some hand and hopefully helping him get back into the game if he's been hurt.
Yeah, that's got to be so cool, because a lot of people don't realize that, in your role, I mean, you were literally in the dugout for every pitch. I mean, when guys are coming and celebrating, you are in the mix of things. So it's neat for you to have the opportunity to see what you have live and in person versus many of us fans that are taking it on a TV. So thank you for sharing those experiences.
Absolutely.
So I want to close our conversation talking about PBats, which is the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society, and the PLAY campaign, which the acronym stands for Promoting a Lifetime of Activity for Youth. And this is an organization that we've worked with for the past 15 years. We love working with PBats. In fact, it was our initial contact following our partnership with Major League Baseball in 2005. And, I'll never forget going to my very first PLAY campaign. It was in Chicago, and just learning all about the work that you guys do. So for our listeners, what exactly is PBats, and why does the organization exist?
It's part of our collective group. And there was some guys back in the day that just thought that it was important that they create a society where they could share ideas and share thoughts amongst each other, because that really wasn't the standard, back in, I think, the 70s and early 80s, was not really to share with anyone else, is to kind of keep to yourself. But I think they all grew an appreciation of, wow, what if we could help each other out with some of the hurdles that we all face. And, thank goodness to our founding fathers of the society, they got together and they created this association, and it's just wonderful to see it grow and I guess just look to serve people. That's what I see. And it's like everything that we're driven by is to just serve others, like the PLAY campaign is a perfect example. We really want to get out there and let the youth know that it's important to be active, and that is going to improve your health, and overall that's our mission, just to try to get awareness and get information out there. So we're really giving society, some great people that are involved, and I tip my hat. I try to carry my weight in the society, but there's plenty of people that have sacrificed a lot of time and effort to try to push us forward. And I think that's, it's kind of set the bar really high. So I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, and what I love is, as we travel to all 30 major league ballparks and get to work with all of the athletic training and strength conditioning staff and all the different teams, everybody runs, their PLAY campaign just a little bit different. They have different games and activities for the kids to keep them active. When did the PLAY campaign start, and why did PBats feel that it was important to put the PLAY campaign together?
Yeah, I think we had a pretty big push. I don't know the exact date. You may know it better than I do, when we exactly started, but I know, I was always one to say, hey, look, we want to see these things in our culture that are changing, and one of them's health, or even the health of our player. By the time they get to us in the major leagues, they've been through a gauntlet of, youth baseball to high school to college to whatnot. And, I've just always been one to let's go after, the very youngest people and see if we can get them educated. And I think our society in general, our health problems are obviously pretty extensive. And you compare that to other countries around the world, like, we're not very good in those categories. And so I just thought, we got to get education, preventative thoughts out there to these when they're kids. And that's just all, even in when it comes to baseball injuries. I mean, I'm just a big proponent of really teaching at the grassroots level. And I think there was enough other people that had that same mindset. We kind of came across this collective thought. And, there was some people that spurred it along. Neil Romano comes to my mind. He was just always looking for good initiatives to get the society involved in. And man, it flowed together really nice. And we had some really good thoughts around it. And, it's taken off. And, I think it's just a wonderful project. And, the work that you do and your group does is fantastic too. And it couldn't be a success without your help. So we appreciate you.
Well, thank you guys.
Just a great thing.
Yeah, we thank you guys for including us in such a wonderful program. It's something I look forward to every year, and I know you see the same thing, but it's the look in the kids' faces when they first walk into the stadium and they get out on the field with you guys, and especially in Arizona when they've got the game that you're playing in left field, and then you got Nate in center field who's running them. It's incredible to see all the just the cheer and everything that it brings to them. And I wanted to ask you if you could talk more about PBats and its commitment to inclusion, diversity, social justice, and just seeing the most in people. Specifically, we know you guys have a campaign called Ability That Transcends Challenges, in which you work with to produce PSAs and all. It's all about education and diversity and inclusion. Can you talk more about that and why that's important to PBats?
Yeah, and again, I want to give some credit to Neil Romano and Sam Radbill. They're two guys that are instrumental in pushing some of these things out in front of our membership and saying, hey, here's an opportunity. What do you guys think? And then obviously it's up to the membership to decide. Look, this is something that we want to be a part of, and obviously. Inclusion and or these racial discrimination things are something that's really prominent on the eyes of all of our membership. I think because we're such serving people anyway. That's our job, is to serve athletes. But we just, in the world that we play in athletics, the social discriminations just they don't set well with us, because we know as a team we have to work together. I mean, for a team to be successful, we all got to work together. So I think my own personal mindset is that, wow, why would we discriminate against somebody on our own team? Like, that makes no sense at all. And I think that to me just carries into my life and society. I just don't see the world that way. It's unfortunate that a lot of people do see it a different way, but I just think internally, from my own perspective, and I know most of the people that I know, we just have this collective thought of how can we include everyone, and even people with disabilities that aren't as fortunate as some that are playing the game. We want them to feel included and serve them too.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to comment on, especially in baseball, you have cultures of all type, people coming in from around the world to play. You have all sorts of nationalities. So it's I know it's really important to all you guys, because no matter what, I mean, we're all family, we're all a team. So it's important to be inclusive and make sure everyone feels that way, not just the team members. And I know at the Play campaign, that's definitely the case. But one of the most amazing parts of Play, and you mentioned this, that really touches my heart is, PBats is adamant about including people with disabilities. And it's one of the most special things that, I've been able to get involved with, especially through Play and NDSS and those types of groups. I just love seeing how they're no different than anyone else at the Play campaigns.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts too, to see somebody with disabilities out there, and particularly in Arizona when we don't always have the roof closed up here, and man, they're sweating bullets too. And you're like, okay, yeah, let's go. This is what it's all about. So it's a really joyous thing to watch. And, it makes us become creative and think about, wow, like look at the limitations that we don't have to deal with personally if we don't have these disabilities. And it makes you just put yourself in their shoes, which is awesome. I love reflecting that way and just seeing, hey, like I'm really fortunate and I really want to help somebody else. That's not as fortunate as me.
Yeah, it's so much fun and just really warms my heart. It's just something that's very special to both my wife and I. Now, Outside of the Taylor Hooton Foundation, we know you have some awesome partners in the Henry Schein Cares Foundation, Major League Baseball Charities, Gatorade, LP Support, KT Tape. What does it mean to have support from such high-quality, influential organizations like these?
Yeah, you can't measure it because if without those people's support, we couldn't give like we're given. And, I know it's hard for somebody to understand all of the places that we're giving back, but, we're an organization that's not driven by taking. We want to give, but we need, at least finances and stuff to be able to put on the play campaigns and all of the other things, the scholarship, foundations and all the things that we do. We need support too. And man, like those partners you just mentioned have been unbelievably supportive of us. And, it just makes what we're doing work. And the same with your foundation, like it just wouldn't happen without you guys. So we're really appreciative of it. And we know it couldn't work without you.
Well, I'm really looking for it. I'm hoping in 2021 we can get back to play and impacting lives. And this has been such a wonderful interview. You've shared, just such a tremendous amount of knowledge and inspiration with us, Ken. But before I let you go, for fans of the All Me podcast, they know that we have a section. It's called our curveball questions. And being in baseball, that's a very difficult pitch to hit. So I've prepared a couple of questions for you that I'm just going to shoot at you. So just respond, just whatever first comes to your mind. All right.
Okay. Can I stop you right there?
I
used to have this coach. He was a hitting guy, and he always said, "Hey, you know who the best curveball hitters are?" And I said, "No, who are they?" And he goes, the ones that never miss the fastball, so you don't have to swing at the curveball.
That's very good. So we're getting ready to see what type of hitter you are. All
okay,
right.
Go ahead, fire.
Not related to athletic training. All right. So if there was a film that would be made about your life, what actor would you want to play your role?
I think Matthew McConaughey. I kind of like his style. He seems a little country. That's kind of the way I grew up. Like when I listen to him, I'm like, I don't know how country he is, but I grew up straight on a cattle ranch, so he might be a good fit for me.
I like Mr. McConaughey. All right. In your role with the Diamondbacks in Major League Baseball, you've had an opportunity to travel to cities around the world. Which city is your most favorite to visit?
In the States or
anywhere around the world? Anywhere around the world.
Okay. Well, I'm a big fan of locally in the States. I like Denver. I'm a big fan of Denver. Actually, one of my kids goes to college there. I just like the mountains. I grew up kind of in the mountains, and I like that. But if I had to go international, some of my more intriguing times have been in Japan. Tokyo, a great place. Just the culture and the things that have went on there are just awesome.
We are right down the same street. I love going to Denver every year. I look forward to it. I especially like how active the people there are in the city, and it is a bucket list item for me to go to Japan. I hear watching baseball there is incredible. I love Japanese food, so that is definitely something on my bucket list. Final question. You've listened to thousands of songs that your hitters walk up to the plate to. If the roles were switched, what song would you choose to come up to when approaching the plate?
Wow. I'm not my wife, she knows every song, every word, every group. I'm not really good at that, but I would have to say I'm kind of a Florida Georgia line guy.
Okay.
So I might go something down that line. I can't tell you a specific song. I like a lot of them, but I'm country and I kind of like that.
Same here for me. But Ken, I wanted just to thank you again on behalf of the Taylor Hooton Foundation for taking time out of your busy schedule to interview with us today on the All Me podcast. I think a lot of the information that you shared with our guest is not just educational, but also inspirational as well. And we just want to also thank you and PBats for all you've done to support the Taylor Hooton Foundation and getting our message out to young people.
Well, I appreciate it, and vice versa. I mean, I really appreciate what you do, Don, and your foundation, and just your whole family and their support for PBats and everything that we've done here with the Diamondbacks. I know it couldn't happen without you, so I appreciate it.
Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooton Foundation, a nonprofit organization leading a national campaign to enlighten people to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances and inspiring people to live and compete without the use of these substances. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and tune in to our next episode.